Press, Florence, with this very interesting story that we've also been covering in the news, a row over censorship in one of China's leading newspapers that has sparked unusual protests in favor of freedom of speech, getting a lot of attention.
That's right. There's an article in the New York Times about it today. It points out that this whole row was over the newspaper Southern Weekend, the leading newspaper in Guangzhou, so the southeastern provincial capital. Now, protesting journalists blamed the top provincial propaganda officer for ordering drastic changes to the New Year editorial. The original editorial had called for greater respect of constitutional rights and had called for reform. But the revised article praised party politics instead. So a lot of journalists got upset about this. About 100 editors and reporters have gone on strike. They're calling on less government intervention, and they're getting a lot of support on what's called the Chinese Twitter, Sina Weibo, including a lot of support from celebrities. In another article, this time in the South China Morning Post, it says that this is a very sad start for the Chinese government. It says the Communist Party's new leader, Xi Jinping, was sworn in last November, and a lot of people hoped that he would bring reform. Instead, this crisis is ringing alarm bells for journalists and liberal intellectuals, and according to the South China Morning Post, though the government might be in favor of economic reform, you're going to have to wait a really long time before real political reform takes place.
And the UK daily, The Independent, says this protest is signs of troubles to come for the new Chinese leadership.
That's right. In their editorial, The Independent says this may not forecast a Chinese spring, as we've been seeing in the Arab Spring, but this row over freedom of speech is the most widespread protest since the Tiananmen Square protests about 25 years ago.
Really?
So by itself, it may not start a revolution, but it is evidence that the demands of the ever-growing middle class that's internet savvy, it's evidence that these demands are growing, and the government, though it may be able to control the media, it can't control social media, such as Sina Weibo.
The international press is also reacting to Obama's nominations for his security team. Yesterday, you told us about Chuck Hagel, Obama's nominee for defense secretary. Today, the spotlight's on John Brennan, appointed to be next head of the CIA.
That's right. According to the Gulf News, it's very worrying that Obama has nominated John Brennan. They call him a security hawk with a destructive attitude for two reasons. First of all, he was the architect of Washington's drone strike policy. And second of all, back in 2008, Obama hesitated, in fact, to nominate him as his chief counterterrorism advisor because...
Right, he had wanted to appoint him.
He had wanted to appoint him, but there were allegations that Brennan had been involved or complicit in the CIA's torture tactics, or what the so-called enhanced interrogation techniques. And actually, there's a cartoon in the International Herald Tribune today by Chapat that looks at this touches on this issue, and you can see Brennan there saying, "I'm against all forms of torture, including Senate confirmation hearings," because I bet you can imagine this issue of torture in the CIA is going to come up.
And yeah, they will have to be heard by the Senate, although both of them, Chuck Hagel and John Brennan, are expected to eventually be approved by the Senate. Now, moving on to something completely different, David Bowie has broken his 10-year musical silence by releasing a new song. It's his 60th birthday. I know you're a bit of a musician yourself.
Well, it's a big comeback for him, and as you can imagine, it's getting a lot of attention in the British press. Here it is on the Guardian, younger Bowie. There he is, 1976. The boy keeps singing. Now, the song is called Where Are We Now? And let's take a listen.
Had to get the train.
How much time do we have?
You never knew that.
So this video and the song is getting a lot of attention in the press, and fans are calling it a masterpiece already. The Independent also has an article on his comeback and says that not much has been heard about him since about 2004. He started having health problems and stopped performing. Now, points out that there hasn't been the usual hype around Rockstar's comeback. In fact, all he did was send an email out to people saying, check out my new song. So it says that this was a surprise comeback, but a masterful one. And according to The Independent, the full album is going to come out in March. And as you can imagine, it'll probably sell like hotcakes. It's his 30th studio album.
His 30th. What kind of music do you play?
Pop rock.
All right. International Press Review with Laurent Villeminot. Thank you very much. Now let's look at the headlines this hour. Hugo Chavez won't be well enough.